Ravi lived a steady and peaceful life in a small corner of a quiet town. His house stood alone near the curve of a long road where old trees spread shade across the ground. The place looked simple from the outside but held years of effort inside. Ravi had made it his home with hard work and patience. He fixed broken steps on weekends, painted walls during summers, and planted flowers that welcomed him each morning. He liked the small space, the soft calm, and the slow rhythm of his days. He had no idea that a single letter would pull him into a battle he never expected. One bright morning, the sky looked clear and the air felt fresh when Ravi stepped out to check his mailbox. He expected nothing more than the usual bills or a simple flyer from a shop. Instead, he found a thick envelope with bold red writing printed on the front. The words felt heavy as soon as he looked at them. It carried an official tone that made him pause. He carried the envelope inside and placed it on his table. He took a slow breath and opened it with careful hands. Inside lay several pages covered with strict language and warnings. They came from an organization named Green Valley Homeowners Association. According to them, Ravi owed a large amount of money in unpaid fees. They accused him of ignoring previous notices. They claimed he violated rules and must pay without delay. Ravi stared at the pages with surprise. He had never joined this association. His house was not part of any managed community. He had no agreement with them. No one had ever asked him to pay anything in all the years he had lived there. It felt like a strange mistake, yet the letter spoke with strong confidence as if they were certain about everything. He looked again at the map printed on one of the pages. It marked a boundary line around the association area, and it included his address. Ravi knew that this line was wrong. His house had been built long before the association existed. His land was part of the old town section, free from the new rules that covered only the newer houses across the street. He had old documents to prove it. After a moment of thought, Ravi decided he should visit their office and talk in person. Maybe someone made an error. Maybe his address was typed wrong. Maybe a simple conversation could solve everything. He drove to the association office, a new building with polished glass windows and bright signs. Inside, the room looked modern with clean desks and shining floors. A young woman named Myra greeted him with a polite smile. Ravi explained the letter and handed over the pages. Myra tapped on her keyboard and checked their system. Her smile faded slowly as she spoke. According to their records, Ravi belonged to the association. According to their charts, he had been a member for years. According to their database, he owed a large amount in unpaid fees. Ravi stayed calm and showed her his property documents. The papers clearly stated that he lived outside the association boundary. Myra looked concerned but uncertain. She said she would call her manager. A tall man named Taran came forward. He carried a strict expression and a sharp tone. He skimmed through the documents but did not seem interested in the details. He insisted that the association records were correct. He repeated that fees were due. He did not accept any explanation. Ravi tried one more time. He explained the history of his land and the fact that his house was part of the old town. Taran did not change his stance. Instead, he warned that the association would take legal action if Ravi refused to pay. Ravi left the office feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief. He had lived peacefully for years. He created no trouble for anyone. Now he faced claims that held no truth. Still, he did not lose his calm. He believed that facts would win once shown clearly. Back at home, he pulled out his files from an old cabinet. He spread them across the table and checked each one. He had his land map, tax receipts, boundary documents, and a copy of the town zoning layout. Every paper pointed to the same truth. His house stood outside the association's reach. He thought the matter would settle soon once he showed everything clearly, but he was wrong. A few days later, another envelope arrived in his mailbox. This time it came from a legal team representing the association. The tone was harsher. The words were heavier. They informed him that a legal claim had been filed. They said he must pay the fees along with additional penalties. They warned that they had strong evidence. They stated that action would continue if he did not follow their demands. Ravi sat at his table with a letter in his hand and tried to understand why this was happening. It no longer felt like a mistake. It felt like a push to force him into something he did not belong to. He knew he needed help. He reached out to a lawyer named Ayan, known in town for his clear reasoning and calm presence. Ayan welcomed him into his small office, which smelled faintly of old books and paper. Ravi explained everything and placed old documents on the desk. Ayan read each page with steady eyes. After a long moment, he leaned back and folded his hands. The association had no authority over Ravi. They had no right to demand money from him. They had no grounds for legal action. Their records were clearly incorrect or intentionally manipulated. Ayan told Ravi that they must respond strongly. If they kept pushing, they should be challenged. They should not be allowed to pressure someone unfairly. Ravi felt a steady strength rise within him. He had always lived a quiet life, but he would not allow injustice to reach his door. He agreed to proceed. Ayan prepared a response that stated Ravi's position with clarity. He included all the valid documents. He warned the association to withdraw their claim or face a counteraction. The reply was firm and confident. Days passed, and the association did not back down. Instead, they insisted their records were correct. They continued to demand payment. They ignored the evidence. They pushed forward with confidence as if they believed no one could challenge them. Ravi realized that this was not a simple dispute. Something deeper rested behind their actions. Maybe their finances were weak. Maybe they needed funds and looked for easy targets. Maybe someone made a wrong decision and refused to admit it. Whatever the reason, Ravi knew he was being dragged into a fight. Ayan looked at the situation again and said they must prepare for stronger action. If the association tried to pressure Ravi through legal threats, they would respond equally. They would file a counterclaim. They would show the court the truth. They would bring forward everything the association tried to ignore. Ravi agreed. He wanted fairness. He wanted clarity. He wanted the wrong corrected. That night he sat on his porch and looked at the quiet street. The trees swayed softly. The sky shifted to a deep shade of blue. At that moment, he understood that his peaceful life had changed. He did not choose this conflict, but it had arrived at his door. Now he would face it with strength. What he did not know was that this conflict would grow beyond his expectations. The decisions he made next would shake the very foundation of the association that tried to intimidate him. It would lead to consequences none of them imagined. It would pull him step by step into a battle where truth would stand against force, and Ravi was ready to take that first step. The morning sun rose silently over the town as Ravi stepped out onto his porch. He felt the cool air touch his face. Even though everything around him looked peaceful, he knew the battle with the association was growing larger behind closed doors. The meeting with their members had shown one clear thing. They were no longer as confident as before. Ravi stood for a moment and watched the trees sway in the gentle breeze. His house felt safe, strong, and steady. It reminded him of why he was fighting. He wanted fairness. He wanted the truth to stand tall. He wanted his quiet life back. Ayan called him later that morning and asked him to come to the office. Ravi reached the small building and stepped inside. Ayan's desk was covered with more documents than ever. The lawyer looked focused, almost serious, but not worried. Ayan explained that after reviewing the association's second set of statements, he noticed something unusual. The dates in their documents did not match the timeline of Ravi's property. Their maps did not match the official maps stored at the town office. Their claim of boundary expansion had no legal authorization. Ayan believed the association might be hiding mistakes or making decisions without proper approval. Ravi listened closely. Ayan's voice held calm strength. He said the cracks in the association's case were growing. He said the truth was on Ravi's side at every step. He said the association's attempt to pressure him might reveal deeper problems they did not want the public to see. After reviewing everything, Ayan made a decision. They would request a full audit of the association's records. An audit would force them to show their finances, meeting notes, and community decisions. If anything improper existed, it would come to light. Ravi felt a mix of surprise and caution. He had only wanted to protect himself, but now the fight seemed to be uncovering much more. Still, he trusted Ayan's judgment. Ayan filed the request for an audit the very same afternoon. Once it was sent, the association could no longer hide behind their internal files. They would have to show proof of their decisions. They would have to reveal how they managed their funds. They would have to answer for every step they took. News of the audit spread quickly across the community. Members of the association whispered in driveways and near mailboxes. Some had already suspected financial trouble. Others had felt ignored by the association's leaders for years. Many wondered if this case with Ravi would finally bring out the truth. 3 days later, the association held a meeting in their main hall. Ravi and Ayan attended as observers. The hall had rows of chairs and a long table at the front where Taran and other board members sat. The lights were bright, but the mood felt tense. As members entered, whispers filled the room. People greeted Ravi carefully. Some offered small nods of support. Others looked unsure but curious. When the meeting started, Taran tried to maintain a strong tone. He claimed the association had acted correctly. He said Ravi was part of their area. He insisted their records were right. But as he spoke, several members stood up and asked questions. One man named Ramesh asked why the boundary map in their system did not match the official one in the town office. Taran avoided the question. A woman named Leela asked why membership fees had increased with no clear explanation. Taran shifted uncomfortably. Another member pointed out that several residents had received strange notices in the past year. He said he wondered if more mistakes had been made. Taran grew more tense with each question. His confidence faded. Karan, the legal representative, stepped in and tried to calm the members, but his explanations felt thin and uncertain. Ayan watched everything silently. Ravi stayed seated, listening carefully. Neither of them spoke, but their presence added weight to every question raised in that room. Soon, the meeting turned into a debate between members and the board. People demanded transparency. They demanded reason. They demanded answers that the board could not provide. At the end of the meeting, the board had no choice but to agree to the audit Ayan requested. It was now official. A team would come to review all records. The truth would come out whether they liked it or not. After the meeting, several residents approached Ravi. They thanked him for standing up. They said they had never seen the board so silent. They said they respected his calm strength. Ravi felt humbled. He had not wanted attention, but he understood their words came from real frustration. Many had felt unheard for years. In the days that followed, the audit team arrived. They examined every record. They checked financial statements, meeting minutes, old reports, and every action signed by the board. They asked for receipts. They asked for approval documents. They asked for maps. They did not leave anything unchecked. During this time, the board appeared nervous. Taryn avoided eye contact whenever Ravi passed by. Karan looked stressed. Myra seemed more open and even apologized quietly to Ravi one afternoon. She admitted she had always suspected their records had errors, but she did not have the authority to question them. One afternoon, Ayan called Ravi with an update. The audit team had found several inconsistencies. Some fees were collected without proper approval. Some decisions were made without community voting. Several documents had unclear changes. The boundary map that included Ravi's house appeared to have been updated without authorization. Ravi listened with steady breath. He felt a sense of justice slowly rising. Ayan told him that once the audit report was completed, it would become part of the court record. It would show clearly that the association had acted without proper basis when they demanded money from him. 1 week later, the audit report was completed. The results were serious. The association had broken several community rules. Some financial decisions lacked transparency. Their boundary map changes were not approved by the town office. Their claim against Ravi had no valid support. The report forced the association to hold another public meeting. This time, the hall was filled with more members than before. They wanted answers. They wanted to know why the board acted without proper approval. They wanted to know why someone like Ravi had been targeted. When Taryn tried to speak, the room did not respond with trust. People interrupted him with questions. They asked why he ignored Ravi's original documents. They asked why he refused to check official maps. They asked why the association pushed forward even when they lacked proof. Karan tried to defend the board, but members challenged him too. They wanted accountability. They wanted correction. Ravi sat quietly beside Ayan. He did not need to say anything. The truth had spoken for him. Eventually, after heavy pressure from the community, the board members agreed to step aside temporarily while the situation was reviewed. The association promised to correct their records. They promised to adjust the boundary map. They promised to resolve Ravi's issue immediately. But the case was not over for Ravi. Ayan reminded him that the counterclaim was still active. The association had caused stress, legal costs, and trouble without reason. They had tried to push him into paying something he did not owe. They had tried to use force instead of truth. Ravi understood. He wanted the process to finish properly. He wanted the court to see the full picture. He wanted fairness for everyone, not just himself. The conflict that began with one letter had now revealed the hidden faults of an entire association. It was no longer just about Ravi. It was about truth standing against a flawed system. Ayan prepared for the next hearing. The court date was coming soon. The final steps of the case would decide everything. Ravi looked at his quiet street that evening. The trees moved gently. The air felt calm. He knew the storm was not over, but he also knew he was ready for whatever came next. Ravi woke early the next morning and stepped outside to feel the fresh air. The sky held a pale glow as sunlight spread through the trees. It should have been a calm day, but his mind stayed focused on the problem that had entered his life without warning. The association had pushed him into a fight he never wanted. Yet he had no choice except to stand firm. After breakfast, he drove to Ayan's office. The lawyer welcomed him with a steady nod. Ayan had already prepared several documents. He explained them with clear words. The first was a formal response to the association's claim. The second was a detailed explanation of Ravi's property lines. The third was a request for the association to provide proof of their authority. Ayan also drafted a warning that if the association continued to pressure Ravi, they would face a counterclaim in court. Ayan spoke with calm confidence. He said the association was acting without proper basis. He said they relied too heavily on their internal records. He said those records were not enough to force someone into a membership. Ayan also explained that making false demands could bring serious consequences for them. He urged Ravi to stay patient and trust the process. Ravi nodded. He respected Ayan's guidance. He took a deep breath and signed the necessary papers. Ayan sent everything to the association through official channels. They would not be able to claim they did not receive it. They would have to face the truth he presented to them. For a brief moment, Ravi hoped the association would step back once they saw the strength of his documents. He hoped they would correct their mistake. He hoped they would accept reality. But the reply he received a week later crushed that hope. A man named Karan, the association's legal representative, sent a thick packet filled with new statements. He insisted that the association had authority over Ravi's property. He repeated the claim that Ravi owed the fees. He suggested that Ravi's documents might be outdated. He ignored Ravi's boundary map. He ignored the historic records. He ignored every clear proof. Ravi read the statements slowly. Each page felt stubborn, as if they refused to acknowledge the truth, even when it stood right in front of them. He walked around his living room, trying to understand why they kept pushing. Something about this situation felt more than a simple misunderstanding. It felt deliberate. The next day, Ravi and Ayan met again. Ayan studied the new packet for a long time. He pointed out gaps in their claims. He identified parts where their reasoning showed clear weakness. He saw that they had no signed contract from Ravi. They had no legal boundary change approved by the town. They had nothing that connected Ravi to the association in any legitimate way. Ayan leaned forward and spoke with firm clarity. It was time to file a counterclaim. He explained that a counterclaim would formally challenge the association's false actions. It would demand compensation for unnecessary stress, legal costs, and time wasted. It would expose the weaknesses in their case and place pressure on them to step back. Ravi listened carefully. He did not enjoy conflict, but he respected fairness. He agreed to move forward. Ayan spent several days preparing everything with precision. He gathered maps from the town office. He collected land records showing the age of Ravi's property. He contacted an independent surveyor who verified the boundary lines again. He created a strong collection of evidence that stood on clear facts. Ravi helped by finding old documents stored in a wooden trunk near his attic. These papers held the original details of his land purchase. They showed the exact lines his house stood on. They also referenced town zoning records that matched perfectly with Ayan's research. Together, the documents formed a complete picture that supported Ravi entirely. Ayan filed a counterclaim at the courthouse with steady confidence. Once submitted, the association would have no way to ignore the truth. They would have to answer not just for their demands, but also for the pressure they placed on Ravi without proper basis. The news of Ravi's counterclaim spread quietly around the neighborhood. People had seen him living peacefully for years. They knew he kept to himself and caused no trouble. Some neighbors across the street even whispered that the association had been struggling financially for months. They talked about rising costs and poor management. They wondered aloud if the association had started looking for extra money in places they should not. Ravi heard these whispers but did not let them influence him. He focused on facts alone. He believed the truth would guide him through the conflict. A week later, the association called for a meeting. They sent a letter requesting Ravi to visit their office to discuss the situation. The language of the letter appeared more cautious now. It lacked the earlier confidence. They wanted to talk instead of threaten. Ravi shared the letter with Ayan, and together they agreed Ravi should attend, but not alone. Ayan would accompany him. They walked into the association office on a clear afternoon. The building looked the same as the day Ravi had first visited, yet the air inside felt different now. Taran, the manager, sat at the conference table. He looked less confident than before. Karan, the legal representative, sat beside him with several files. Mira, the woman from the front desk, sat quietly at the corner, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Ayan placed his documents on the table and began to speak. He explained Ravi's position with calm authority. He showed the boundary maps. He showed the survey results. He presented the old town zoning layout. He spread the historic land records. Each detail carried weight that none of them could deny. Taran studied the papers with slow eyes. Karan scanned them again and again. Myra looked at them with a quiet understanding. The association members had no strong argument to offer in return. Their internal records suddenly looked weak. Their earlier confidence faded with each page Ayan placed before them. After a long silence, Karan cleared his throat and spoke with a softer tone. He said they needed time to review everything. He said they might need to adjust their position. He said they would respond. Soon Ravi stayed calm. He did not raise his voice. He did not show anger. He simply nodded and left the office with Ayan. Outside, the afternoon sun felt warm on his skin. It felt like the first small step toward justice, but the conflict was not over yet. Ayan warned Ravi that organizations like the association rarely accepted fault easily. They might try to negotiate. They might try to delay. They might try to shift blame. They might even attempt to create new arguments. Ravi understood. He felt ready. In the days that followed, the association behaved strangely. They stopped sending threatening letters. They sent polite messages instead. They asked for more time. They asked for additional documents even though they already had everything. They tried to slow down the process in small ways. Ayan recognized these tactics quickly. He kept track of every delay. He answered every request with organized precision. He did not allow the association to mislead or distract. He stayed focused on the truth. He prepared for the next step in the case. Ravi continued his daily life with steady patience. He watered his plants. He swept the front porch. He fixed a loose board in his fence. Each task helped him stay balanced. He did not let stress control him. He trusted that fairness would come in time. What he did not know was that the association had deeper problems hidden beneath their confident surface. Their financial reports were unstable. Their management decisions had angered several members. Their records were poorly kept. Their funds were shrinking. Ravi's case might be the turning point that revealed everything. Soon, the court would review both sides. Soon, the association would face the truth they had tried to ignore, and Ravi's quiet strength would become their greatest challenge. The day of the hearing arrived with a quiet weight in the air. Ravi woke early and sat on the edge of his bed for a long moment. He felt calm on the outside, but inside he carried a steady tension. This case had started as a strange mistake, yet it had grown into something far bigger. Now everything would be placed before the court, and the truth would be tested in front of everyone. Ravi dressed carefully and stepped outside. The morning carried a gentle breeze that brushed against his face. The street looked the same as always, peaceful and still, as if nothing unusual was happening. But today held a special meaning. Today was the day justice would move forward. Ayan met him at the courthouse entrance. The lawyer looked composed and confident. He greeted Ravi with a firm nod and a calm voice. Ayan carried several organized folders under his arm. Inside those folders rested the documents that could change the entire direction of the case together. They walked through the large doors of the courthouse. The halls inside echoed with soft footsteps and quiet voices. The courtroom itself was wide and bright, with rows of benches facing the judge's seat. Ravi sat next to Ayan near the front, his hands resting quietly on his lap. Soon the association's side entered. Taran walked in with a stiff posture. His expression held tension instead of confidence. Karan followed him with a stack of papers, moving with slow steps. Behind them sat several board members who looked uneasy. They had faced pressure from their own community, and now they had to face the court as well. The judge entered and the room fell silent. The case began with the association presenting their claim. Karan stood and spoke first. He tried to explain that Ravi was part of the association area. He insisted that their records included his property. He said the fees were standard and necessary. But every time he tried to speak with confidence, his voice sounded unsure. The earlier events, the audit, and the community pressure had shaken their position. Even the judge noticed the hesitation. When Karan finished, the judge asked him to show the documents proving Ravi's membership. Karan placed several papers on the table. The judge read them carefully. The documents looked official but lacked the clear signatures and town approvals required for boundary changes. Ayan stood next. He began by laying out Ravi's original land documents. He showed the property map that placed Ravi's house outside the association boundary. He presented the town's zoning records. He displayed the independent surveyor's report. Then he placed the audit results before the judge. Ayan explained each detail with calm clarity. He did not raise his voice. He did not use heavy words. He simply let the truth speak in plain sight. He showed the inconsistency in their boundary map. He pointed out the lack of official approval. He revealed how the association acted without proper authority. Every piece of evidence carried a simple message. Ravi was never part of the association. He never owed them anything. The courtroom stayed silent as Ayan continued. The judge listened without interruption. The association members shifted in their seats with growing discomfort. Even Taran lowered his gaze more than once. Finally, Ayan explained Ravi's counterclaim. He told the judge how the association sent multiple demands without basis. He explained the stress and time Ravi had endured. He described the pressure applied through letters and legal actions. He pointed out how the association ignored clear documents from the beginning. The judge nodded slowly as he listened. When Ayan finished, the judge asked a direct question to the association. He wanted to know why they did not verify Ravi's documents earlier. He wanted to know why they did not check the official town map before sending claims. He wanted to know why they continued to pressure him even after receiving proof. No one answered immediately. The silence lasted longer than anyone expected. Finally, Taran stood and attempted a weak explanation. He said their internal records had been followed for years. He said they believed everything was correct. He said they never intended to cause harm. But the judge did not accept vague answers. He asked for clarity. He asked for proof. He asked for reasons that made sense. The association provided none. After reviewing the evidence, the judge closed the session for a short break. He needed time to think before giving his decision. During the break, the courtroom remained tense. Ravi and Ayan stepped outside. Ravi breathed in the fresh air, feeling the tension slowly settle. Ayan assured him that the case leaned heavily in his favor. The evidence was clear. The association's mistakes were undeniable when they returned. The judge read his decision. He declared that Ravi was not part of the association. He stated that the association's boundary map was incorrect. He criticized their failure to check official town records before sending demands. He dismissed their claim entirely. Then he addressed the counterclaim. The judge acknowledged the unnecessary stress and legal pressure Ravi faced. He stated that the association acted without proper basis. He ruled that the association must compensate Ravi for legal costs and damages. He also ordered them to correct their records and publicly acknowledge the error at their next community meeting. The courtroom stayed silent for a moment as the words settled. The association members looked shocked. Some looked disappointed. Others looked relieved that the truth had finally forced its way into the open. Taran looked pale. Karan lowered his head. Ayan placed a hand on Ravi's shoulder. It was a gesture of quiet victory. Ravi felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had not wanted a fight, but when pushed into one, he had stood firm. The truth had guided him. His patience and calm strength had carried him to this moment. After the judge ended the session, Several people approached Ravi to express their respect. Some residents from the association side thanked him softly. They said this case might help improve the community's leadership. Others apologized on behalf of the confusion caused by the board. Ravi accepted their words with a gentle nod. He held no anger. He understood that most of them had simply trusted their board without question. Now the truth had given everyone a chance to correct their path. Outside the courthouse, the sky had turned bright and warm. Ravi looked up for a moment and felt the tension finally leave his chest. Ayan smiled beside him and said justice had spoken clearly today. But Ayan also added something else. He said the financial pressure from the compensation and the audit costs might push the association into deeper trouble. Their funds were already weak. Their mistakes were too large to ignore. Their members were losing trust. Ravi heard the words but did not celebrate. He had never wished harm on anyone. He simply wanted fairness. Still, the consequences were unavoidable. The association had chosen this path. They had created their own trouble. Now they had to face what came next. As Ravi drove home, the road stretched quietly ahead. The trees stood tall. The world felt calm again. But deep inside, he sensed that the association had not yet reached the end of its struggle. Their foundation had cracked. Their balance was shaken. And in the final part of this story, everything would unravel fully. The day of the final hearing arrived, and a calm silence covered the courtroom. The judge entered and took the seat, and everyone waited for the last part of the case to begin. Malik sat straight and quiet. He had prepared every page and every file with care. He knew this was the day everything would be decided. Across the room, the HOA board members sat together, and worry showed clearly on their faces. Their lawyer kept flipping through papers as if trying to find something that could help them. The judge started by asking if both sides were ready for closing arguments. Malik stood first. He walked toward the stand with steady steps. He did not try to look dramatic. He did not speak loudly. He simply spoke with truth and calm strength. He said he never owed anything. He said he never lived under the HOA. He said he never agreed to any rules or contracts. He explained how the board had been warned many times but continued to send letters and bills. He explained how they dragged him into court again and again without proof. He showed how their papers were copied from old lists that did not even include his correct address. He ended by saying that he wanted fairness and that he wanted the harassment to end. When Malik finished, the judge nodded in approval. Then the HOA lawyer stood. His voice was strained. He tried to explain that the HOA had made a simple mistake. He tried to say it was a misunderstanding, but the judge interrupted him more than once. The judge wanted proof. He wanted documents. He asked where the agreement was. He asked where Malik had signed anything. He asked how a person could be under an HOA when his house was not even inside the boundary. The lawyer had no answers. The board members whispered among themselves, and their faces showed defeat. The judge called for a short break before giving the final decision. During the break, Malik stayed calm. He did not celebrate early. He knew that the end was near, but he waited with patience. A few minutes later, everyone was called back in. The judge sat down and began to speak. His voice echoed across the room. He said the HOA had no right to charge Malik any money. He said they had no proof and no legal contract. He said they had harassed a resident who never belonged to them. He said they caused unnecessary stress and wasted court time. Then he delivered the part everyone waited for. He ruled fully in Malik's favor. The HOA was ordered to pay for all damages, all legal costs, and the extra penalty that Malik had requested earlier. The moment the words left the judge's mouth, it felt like the whole room exhaled at once. The board members dropped their heads. Their lawyer closed his eyes. The judge ended the session and left the courtroom. Malik stood still for a moment. He did not shout or laugh. He only felt a strong wave of relief. His fight was finally over. Outside the courtroom, several neighbors who had come to watch congratulated him. Many of them had faced similar issues with the HOA. They said they admired his courage. Malik thanked them politely and said he only did what anyone should do when treated unfairly. He walked to the parking lot feeling lighter than he had in months. The days after the ruling were busy. The HOA was ordered to make payments by specific deadlines. When the first deadline arrived, they failed to send the full amount. Malik's lawyer contacted the court. The judge gave the HOA another chance. A second deadline passed, and again the payment was incomplete. This time, the judge had enough. The court sent a notice that the HOA had violated the ruling. Additional penalties were added. The HOA was already struggling with debt, and now the fines doubled their burden. Weeks passed, and homeowners inside the HOA area became upset. They demanded answers from the board. They asked why so much money had been spent on a case they had no chance of winning. They asked why the board ignored warnings. They asked why their dues were being raised to cover mistakes. Meetings became heated. People shouted. Some left the meetings early in frustration. Every member of the board faced pressure from neighbors who felt betrayed. One day Malik received a letter, but this one was not like the old letters. It was from a group of homeowners inside the HOA. They thanked him. They said he had helped expose long-ignored problems. They said the board had been mismanaging money for years. They said his case pushed them to demand change. Malik felt surprised. He had fought only for himself, but his fight had helped others too as months went on. The financial damage was too much for the HOA. The court penalties, the legal costs, and the mismanagement added up. Eventually, the HOA announced that it could no longer operate. It had no funds left. It had to shut down. The board members resigned one after another. Homeowners gathered and formed a new group to manage their area. And this time they decided they would run it with fairness and honesty. They said they would never allow the same mistakes to happen again. When Malik heard the news, he did not celebrate their downfall. He felt no joy in their collapse. He believed in fairness, not revenge. But he did feel satisfied that justice had been done. He had stood up for himself, and the truth had won. He continued with his life peacefully. His home felt truly like a safe place again. There were no more letters stuck on his door. No more fake bills. No more unnecessary court dates. Just calm days filled with his usual simple routine. One evening, as the sun set behind the houses, a neighbor approached Malik and asked how he stayed so steady through everything. Malik smiled and said that when a person knows they are right, they must stay firm. Lies cannot stand forever. Truth has its own strength. The neighbor nodded and said people would remember the case for years. Malik replied that he hoped they remembered it not for the fall of the HOA, but for the importance of being honest and standing up for what is right. Life slowly returned to normal. Malik spent more time on his garden again. He planted new flowers and trimmed the small trees in his yard. Each morning he walked outside and looked at the quiet road. It felt peaceful. It felt right. He appreciated the calm more than ever because he had fought hard to protect it. One afternoon, a small group of residents from the old HOA area stopped by his house with a fruit basket. They said it was a gesture of thanks. They said his patience had inspired them. Malik accepted the basket with a warm smile and wished them well with their new community plan. He gave them advice to always check their documents, stay transparent, and never ignore concerns from neighbors. They nodded and promised they would manage things with care. Months later, Malik looked back on everything: the late nights preparing documents, the stress of court visits, the frustration of being accused of something he never did. All of it felt distant. What stayed with him was the lesson that people must protect their rights, even when the fight is long, and also that many problems begin when people refuse to listen or admit mistakes. He hoped others would learn from what happened. In the end, Malik did not see himself as a hero. He saw himself as a simple person who wanted peace in his home, but his quiet strength had changed a whole community. He had stood against pressure with calm courage. He had trusted truth more than fear. His story became something people shared as a reminder that fairness always matters, and so Malik continued living his calm life, stronger and wiser than before. His home remained free from trouble, and the peace he had fought for stayed with him every day. His journey had been difficult, but he walked through it with dignity. That was his real victory.